Welcome back to Dear Future, where we connect with the humans who are redefining the boundaries of art and technology. I'm Suki, here to guide you through another inspiring tale of creative experimentation. Today, we're chatting with Jonathan, also known as Jovardi, a commercial director who's breaking ground in the visual storytelling space with generative AI. Represented by multiple top production companies like Sauvage TV and Boutique Films, Jovardi has some incredible innovative and boundary-pushing work internationally, with projects spanning Europe, Southeast Asia, and beyond. And while he's experienced in directing for many different brands, his passion for exploring how AI can transform visual narratives caught our eye especially in his submission to Runway's Gen 48 film competition with his project Genesis. Today, we'll be unpacking his creative process, his unique approach to storytelling with AI, and how he's carving a path forward in this evolving landscape.
This idea that everything's been done before can be challenged.
I've been dreaming of a computer like this my whole life.
It really made me think more about how our brains work.
It's not coming from anywhere else. It's only coming from us.
Dear Future.
Jonathan, welcome to Dear Future.
Hey, Suki.
So nice to have you. So, getting started, I'd love to know a little bit about your earliest relationship to technology and what were the earliest indications of your interests today?
I always had a computer in the house. My father was early age in the startup, so he had his company in the early mid-90s. I had my own computer playing Prince of Persia, and I don't think I created in it, but I had a music app. I had a home design 3D app. We had Photoshop. We had all these as a kid. So our generation really grew with technology already.
So it kind of felt like technology was already woven into your childhood without even you noticing it was there. It was always in the backdrop.
In a way, I guess.
And what were the earliest indications of what you do today?
You know, I got my 8mm camera when I was 8. I don't have that story, and I wish I did. I started directing when I was 17. This is when I did my first music video. I can't say it went viral because there was no YouTube, Facebook, or nothing, but it was for a Canadian band, which I loved, and I sent it to them, and it became their official video. Yeah, it was basically my first project. Building a green screen studio, figuring out what After Effects, how do you record, how do you direct actors, how do you tell a story, how do you build a world.
I mean, you started early too, like at 17, you're really going pretty hard. Did you go to film school? Was it just something you were interested in?
Yeah, no, I was in film school. I left school early and then I joined film school when I was 17. In the first year, they didn't let us use the studio or equipment from the university, so I had to build my own little DIY.
The early days, when you're just spitting duct tape.
Exactly, with wired slides.
And like wires everywhere, tripping hazards, no tape anywhere.
So the idea of that video came from Metropolis, and I got obsessed with the mirrors. The way they did it was like they built small models, and then you put a mirror in like 45 degrees so you could have the actors inside. So I built a huge model and did a test, and I realized I need to have a studio in the side of a football field just to be able to do it. Lucky enough, I had a friend who told me, yeah, there is this software After Effects, so you can just build it smaller, take a photo. And this is After Effects. I don't know when you started, so it was still pink. The UI was pink, and you had like 5-4 tools, or at least I knew 5-4 tools, probably there were more.
That's really fun. And since then, you've also explored a lot of different styles. Like from your website, you're doing all kinds of genres in different countries and languages. I don't know if you actually speak those languages. Tell me about how you got into directing commercials and music videos and these like kind of epic films in countries who, again, you don't really speak the language of.
A lot of that just happened. There's no narrative I can say, okay, I did this, and then that one thing kind of led to another. Sometimes it's tough. Usually I have at least the AD who speaks English, and then I communicate with him, and I bring on my own DOP wherever I shoot. So I do have like the chief or the key people who speaks my language. I had one shoot in Korea where we had an AD. They bought like the best AD who speaks English in the country, but it was COVID time, and he had caught COVID the day before shoot. So I found myself with like no AD, 25 hours shooting day. So
oh no.
I had fun. I was like literally running through shots and figuring out this day and communicating with hands. And also different industries work differently. For example, Korea, the gaffers and the DOP are kind of different departments where I used to speak with your DOP and he speaks with the gaffer. So it's an experience. It's a film school by itself.
I'm curious because I think we all have our moment, at least whatever that first moment is, like the encounter with AI. I know that that I was in a process where I was kind of moving from documentary directing and shooting to commercial directing, and then from there kind of trying to get into narrative. And I was really excited about screenwriting and trying to get myself into writing this film that I've yet to make, but was really exciting at the time. I was on a sabbatical, and I remember when DALL-E came out, and I had this moment of like overwhelm and panic and what I called the 5 stages of chat, which is like this kind of wave of like grief and possibility and excitement and surprise and also disappointment, and just like this wave of emotions that crashes over you when you realize what's happening, the AI moment. And I remember trying to get myself through my 3 to 5 pages a day by being like, okay, after this we can go and like learn about AI stuff. And I'm curious for you, what was your inception moment coming to experience generative AI? When did it hit you? And when did you realize you wanted to be a part of the cycle of that storytelling?
My first encounter was with, I don't know which kind first, like Midjourney, like the bed of Midjourney, or like GPT had Playground, I think the name was it. So before GPT-3 or around that time, they had this place where you can start a story and then it will just continue your writing. I don't love the way it writes. Like, I do use it to, you know, edit stuff and stuff, but I don't like the idea. It's idea, but I love the visuals. Like, Midjourney blew my mind and just became a tool that I play with so much.
Paint me the scene. Where were you? What happened? What were your first thoughts as you were playing with Midjourney?
So I was working at a startup company and we were in Italy on a vacation when I got the mail, okay, you're in the rollout on the beta, whatever. So I basically just locked myself in the room and started generating images, and more people from the company also came and said, oh, Jonathan had this. And we started throwing out ideas, and I made the first day, you know, an album cover for a friend. And then I just kept on using it for everything. I don't do storyboarding with it, but like art directing, references. You're looking now at those images where I saw them and I thought, man, this is life-changing. But I look now in those images and I was like, this is what I love. I like that. This is so weird.
100%. I look at those early images I made and I'm like, wow, this was what I thought was going to change the world. Yeah, really?
Yeah.
The long arc is so wild because when we were first confronting these tools, it can feel so overwhelming and you can feel like I have infinite power at my fingertips. And maybe a part of that is just the feeling of potential, of empowerment, and like maybe less in the images themselves, but in the feeling of getting to make whatever in your head. From that moment to this moment, how do you feel about generative AI? Do you feel like grizzled and tired of it? Are you excited? How have your feelings changed over the arc of your experiences with it?
I guess I'm still excited. I'm less excited. Like, I find myself less working with Midjourney, for example. It just became in the pipeline of my work. So if I need a reference and I can find it, I just go and I make it. Or usually I'll go first to Midjourney then before I go to, I don't know, Pinterest or whatever.
Yeah.
I am super excited by all these, you know, video to image, text to video, all those tools like the generative video.
I really would love to get into this film that you made for the Gen 48 film competition because I think it's such an interesting and unique storytelling style. And I'd love if you could just take me through how the story came about, how you made it, what did it look and feel like?
I think, you know, it's a 48 hours where you need to make a film. And I knew already the limit because I have been playing with those tools before, that when I try to make what I want, there's no way. If I have a specific shot, I cannot do it. But if I give some more freedom and if I just dive in and explore, I create amazing stuff, or like amazing stuff come out. And this is kind of the rule I set to myself. I said, okay, whatever happens, you start this film and you're going to finish it and start rendering shot or generating shot and put them on the timeline. So the first day, I don't think I had any shot. I was creating the world. So figuring out the aesthetic, figuring out the color palette, you know, writing the prompt that is like the structure, and then you change the middle part. So you have the beginning and the end, which kind of stay the same, like what camera I use, what lens, what is the light setup, what's the color palette. And then I just started changing, seeing what's happened. I do love characters, because I was also playing with characters in Runway before, and I love trying to get emotion out of those characters. So I add all those as well, like make him feel excited and sad. And sometimes it happens, sometimes it doesn't, you know, but you need to iterate enough to get a good result.
And what tools did you use for that?
That's only text to video in
just Runway.
Yeah.
Oh, wow. That's awesome. How did you come up with the story?
what's the story there? I didn't write down any word. I just like put it on a timeline, and then I started recording this voiceover and that voiceover and kind of figuring out what it is. And again, I feel that this specific film, like as a contrast to, commercial I do, well, everything is so planned. This, I kind of wanted to be more like a poetry, and I can try to interpret now, and I might give an interpretation that I would love, but it doesn't necessarily mean that this is what I created.
Right.
If that makes sense.
Totally. Well, I think it's a very different approach than a lot of people are using generative AI right now, which is trying to replicate kind of the storytelling pipeline, which is like you have a script, you have an idea, like scene A goes to scene B, very much like you're working on a commercial pipeline. What inspired you to do just visuals first?
I think I'm a visual first person, and this is a visual first tool. So if I write the story, I'll just feel very frustrated from not being able to get the images I want. But if I get the images I want, I knew I could kind of write a story around it.
That's so interesting.
Well, almost like sculpting in a tone. So if you have specific thing you need to sculpt, it might not work, but you can still make something very beautiful out of it by just like taking part out and shaving it and whatever.
Let's dig into that a little bit more. How has working with these tools that are such a visual first medium changed your creative practice and your brain?
I think my brain is unfixable, and I don't think any tool could change it. But no, I can tell about a different project I'm working on. Again, like it's not out, but the creative process was very much inspired, and those were the tools. So this is the film that I'm developing for like 7 months. And I started with a script, and I hated everything because like I love good structure when I see it, and I can admire it and can say, wow, what a craftsmanship. But I'm kind of in a place, like as a viewer and as someone who consumes culture, where I just hate to know what's coming. I see, the next act, and I wanted to break out of that. So I decided to just create the images that I love, that was in Midjourney, to print them, to cut them, to make some collages, and build a storyboard page by page of a film that I still don't know the story, and I'm open to explore.
I think that's really interesting to just be building a storyboard first approach to storytelling. Like you're literally visually mapping it before you put any words on the page.
Filmmaking is a visual medium. Why the fuck do we need to write the script? It makes no sense. I don't need this blueprint. Ideally, I'll take a camera and work with actors for 2 years and just do that, but that's not feasible in any way. Maybe now it will be. But also, I'm a kind of a person where I can work, 20 hours if I'm working towards a final art piece or a final thing. I can do that. I cannot develop a draft. Like, I cannot spend as much time on a script if it's not the final, Tarantino, he's saying, his scripts are the final art form and he's enjoying the process. I don't enjoy that. I hate that. But I like making beautiful things, and I like exploring images, and I like making collages. And I think this is a different way of developing a world.
That's amazing. And did you always feel that way with even your commercial work? Do you feel like you start with the image first before you go into text?
I think all the commercials I do are world building. It's very much aesthetic. It's much easier in a commercial because you get the script, you get the agency brief,
boards.
and this is this is what you're gonna do. And then I'm like, oh my, I'll do this, I'll do that, I'll change it. I'll show this, I'll bring in something else. But I have something to start with. And then, I go to the visuals. And
so let's go back to the film that you're developing. So you started with visuals first. How has that process been going? What has happened?
A lot has happened. First, I'll tell you, it's a horror film. It's a romantic horror, I guess. And right now, I have the full treatment. I have the synopsis. I have about 50 pages of this storyboard, exploring the key scenes.
And have you found that you're able to get the ideas across doing just the visuals first?
Now I'm at the point where I left the visuals because I felt that I am dealing with scenes and with characters, and making the visual kind of felt just like I need to produce them to make the pages, where now it's much faster to me to just write the dialogue. It kind of went to the second stage.
And especially as we're diving into these tools in a way that nobody maybe has before, there's probably a lot of challenges that you can't like YouTube. You can't just like go and ask somebody how to do it. One, what creative challenges have you had while making these projects, and how you approach problem solving to problems that others might not have maybe encountered or even written about and created materials around?
I guess it's just exploring. We don't have the tutorial. Like if you go to YouTube now, you can find a lot of like prompting for Runway and stuff like that. It's not about that. I'm not a technician and I'm not here to control the tools. Even when I was a VFX artist, I was a CG artist, I was making comp. But it's not about controlling the tool. It's more about trying to get the image done. So I guess my work is very messy. And the way I solve problem, the entire process is a problem. And at a certain point of the day, I get the image I want. I don't know how, but by changing the prompts and doing it again and again, and then taking the image that I like and feeding that back in and creating this loop where I do it again and again and again. I'm sure that if I'll sit down and write the actual process, kind of makes sense, but the next day it will be different because those tools are not so controllable.
And I guess, can you tell me a little bit more about the tips that you have found? Like, what have you discovered as you're learning? What processes make sense to you?
I found two things work really well. First, you don't have to have a huge prompt. It doesn't necessarily mean it will make things better. And I do describe everything from the style point of view. So color palette, I would describe what kind of camera movement, what composition am I looking for, what lenses, what film stock, all those sort of stuff. And I see what happens, I play around. I do start with a smaller prompt usually, and then I would add on. So the final prompt would be longer, but I start with a shorter one. Just be open-minded. If you find something you like, explore more on that. There is no right way, because text to video or prompting is very, very easy. You describe what you want.
Well, something that I talk with a few of my friends who have been in this world for a little while, more than ever, generative AI requires you to be a curator more than maybe even like generating ideas is the easy part. It's actually selecting them and picking which ones to go forward with. And as you said, a big part of that is taste, is like refining your taste and learning what are the kinds of things I like, what feels too cheesy, what's too weird and obtuse. And one of the things that I've been really working on is trying to develop my taste, because I see a lot of the generative aesthetics. Some things are just really weird that people put out, but I also notice that there's something compelling about them that I'm drawn to, and I don't quite understand why. And I've been sort of shying away from some of these visuals and pieces that feel a little bit too poppy. They almost feel like a kind of a generic look that feels like cellophane film over animation. And in the development of my own taste, I realize I'm having to open my mind to what I thought I didn't like before. You know, I'm like more open to things that are a little stranger and more grotesque and uncomfortable, maybe because I'm craving some feeling of authorship within the piece, like somebody really intentionally went to this place rather than just taking whatever came out of the box. And I'm really curious for you, how do you develop your taste? Like, where do you go to get inspiration? How do you feed your own library of resources and references?
I have two things. First, everything you describe now is exactly like being a director, because each one comes with his own tool set, but there you do nothing except deciding what's going to happen and selecting, okay, this looks nice, this doesn't. You're curating the piece that way or that way. So it's very similar. Right now, I have 3 kids. You know, I don't have time to do anything. If I have time to do something, I'll watch a film because I have to, and I enjoy it. You know, I'm abroad on production. This is where I usually have more time to watch. And then I'll do like a David Lynch binge or whatever. But I find myself now, I'm more re-watching films I love. I don't watch a lot of new stuff. Sometimes there is like a series I like, or an animation piece or something that someone said me or caught my eye. But I'll read a book I read already or watch a film I already read. And also I find it with the music.
I think in that space, sometimes it can feel nice to crave the familiar. And so I definitely also feel that. I don't know about you, but I've been going back to 90s rom-coms. There's something so nostalgic and delicious about rewatching these pieces. And, you know, again, as a director, it's like, I don't necessarily want to make those, but I just love the familiarity of them.
But, you know, at the 90s generation, we're very lucky because a lot of the stuff that are happening now, our generation are making it. So the references is that, you know, sex education or all those Netflix shows that really reference this era, nostalgia for the 90s.
Is there anything that for you is like pinnacle inspiration of your favorite oldies?
It's a tough question. My favorite is like late, so, you know, Internal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind or Spike Jonze. Anything he'll do, I'll watch again and again. Those are the things I love. And again, music videos. I grew up on music videos. I made music videos. This is the only art form that I kind of look for when in the morning. Like now there is kind of a peak for some new cool stuff that are happening. There was like some low period, but I'm always looking for like the coolest new music videos still. Yeah.
I want to take us back a little bit now, back to sort of creative practice. What are the biggest challenges that you have faced in your creative practice?
So I'll speak about the film developing because I don't have the same feeling towards commercial, even though I love them and I think they're great. It's a craft more than an art. And in my art, what I struggle is first figuring out what do I want to say, because it's very easy to create beautiful stuff. It's very easy to create cool stuff. It's even easier, but just like finding what do I want to say and finding something that will still be interesting for me the next day and the day after. And for, if it's a film, for the next, 3 years, 5 years that I'll be working at.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. How do we keep our attention clear and crystallized?
Interest. It's attention and interest as well. I want to figure out what makes my artistic fuel on fire, I guess.
Yeah, especially with AI stuff, I've noticed, and also just social media, TikTok, like my attention span, I notice has gotten shorter. Like I want the delicious thing faster. And then I realize I'm in a loop. And so then I crave something really slow, like the exact opposite. And I'm just curious how that has translated to in your experience.
No, I definitely think that like if you look at Genesis and you look at on the, I don't know, Chupa Chups commercial or the Lazada or whatever, this is like super vibrant, all the colors. And here you have something that is very, green and black and very different. And I wanted that. Many people told me it's dark. I don't think it's dark. I think it's very funny. But it is, it's exploring darker sides and trying to do something that is not necessarily, communicative as a commercial.
And would you say that there's any challenges that are unique to the generative process that you don't feel in your other work?
I think the process is totally different. You shouldn't look at making an AI film the same way you look at making a short film or a commercial. I mean, you can take some of these tools and use them, which I've done. I made it with AI and we had it in a commercial. But this is just using the tool for stuff. If you take this as an artistic tool or an artistic field, it's totally different. It's something else. It's not the same. The output could still be a file that you press play on, but the medium is different. So the process of creating it should also be different. And it is, actually.
Can you tell me about how the process is different? Maybe for those who haven't really played with it?
Everything we've said, it's more intuitive. It's more about coming into it with an open mind and figuring out what is coming out, what do you like, what resonates in you at the specific moment that you're creating it. And I think that speed is a great thing there, because if you get fast enough, you can create something that is amazing and really capture how you feel at a specific moment, which you cannot really do in films. We develop a feature film for 5 years, 2 years you write it, pre-production, post, until it comes out, you're a different person. And here you can create something that really capture a moment. When I made Genesis, those 2 days with one night where I didn't sleep, this is how I felt, and it captured it. And I couldn't make it now because I don't feel that way now. Now if I'll jump in and make another thing, which I'll probably do because I love it, and not now, but I don't know, in 2 weeks or a month or whenever I'll have time, it will be different. Maybe it'll be super colorful. Maybe it will be black and green and gold.
What's great about that is like, in some ways it feels kind of like a Polaroid. It's kind of like you have a moment, you develop it, and you get to come back and see what did the AI have, and in some ways it just captures a moment so beautifully, just like a snapshot of your feelings.
That's poetry. When people write poems, they don't write them throughout a year. They sit down and they write the poem. Maybe they edit it later, but they write the poem because this is how they feel now. And it's an amazing time to live where we can create a film. Poetry that really is that. Not that there aren't poetic films, not that there aren't, video art and stuff like that. But the fact that it took 5 months to make them necessarily means it's not the same thing.
Mm-hmm. Totally. And again, do you feel like there's unique challenges that you have come up against in that process for you yourself personally?
Yeah, there are. For example, I wanted yesterday to create a shot where I have 2 leaves swirling around each other in a stormy cloud. I cannot make it. Either the leaves are moving like that, or I cannot create that shot. I have the image in my mind, and I know that if I have a 3D artist here and, some people, we can make this happen, but here I can't. So if I come with the state of mind of of like the traditional way of filmmaking, everything is a challenge and it's a shitty tool. But if I come with an open mind and I say, okay, this is the tool, there's no pros and no cons, this is the tool, and just like, let's see what I can create. It's like asking, what's the challenge with the pen? And I'll say, yeah, I cannot shoot photos with it. So, but I can create amazing, doodles, or like just painting.
Totally. Understanding the limitations of the tool is a huge part of it, and not expecting it to be something that it's not. What tools do you use right now? Is it mostly Runway? Are there other tools that you're experimenting with?
No, I played with Luma as well, and just I play with everything I have, everything there are.
And now that you've kind of been in this space for a little while, I feel like it's like hindsight is 20/20 and we have no idea what the future is going to bring. But with our limited understanding, looking back from where we were in the early advent of these tools to now, and then projecting forward a little bit, like where do you feel like value is going to live within these creative processes? Like where do you think this is going?
I think everything's going to change. In our industry, everything's going to change. It already is happening. You see with all the studios, all the VFX vendors I'm working with, either have one guy working with AI or just telling everybody do everything you can with AI. So that's like the more capitalistic way you can say, because like companies are changing and changing the way things are working. But from creative point of view, I think we're going to see amazing films and films that we haven't seen before and stories we haven't seen before. Probably the first generation of filmmakers that will use it will incorporate shots from that with traditional filmmakers. You can't really make, a dialogue. Even you can't make two characters in a shot. There are a lot of stuff you can't do, but you can, incorporate that. I have in my film a deer that becomes a woman. And when I was writing it, like everybody said, yeah, it's like just $2 million just to create this deer. But now I have a folder with so many shots of this deer. I can just go and shoot the film without the deer and I'll edit it. So a lot of stories that otherwise would cost $300 million, now you can make in 1 or 5 or, more indie. This is still money, I know, but it's more like indie films could be made and tell stories that otherwise couldn't be told.
What are the stories you're most excited to see?
I cannot say, because if I would know, I would make them. But just I want people to surprise me, and I want to see a film that hasn't been made before. And I want to see a film that is taking me to worlds that I haven't seen and telling it in, Black Snyder will say everything is like that, or you always have this restructure, whatever. I guess they'll still say that. But I'm interested in this journey and the visual journey in a more specific way. Yeah.
I think that is like a perfect way to close out our chat. And I have one last question for you. I want you to take a moment, reflect, and complete the sentence in a way that only you can, starting with Dear Future.
Dear Future, be exciting.
That's great. Dear Future, be exciting.
It will. It's going to be a mess. It's going to be crazy, and I hope it will be very exciting.
I love that. Dear Future, I hope you're really exciting. Thank you so much for taking your time for this episode and for making all of the work that you're making. It's such a pleasure to get to chat about your process. And for all of our listeners, please go follow him, check out his work, see what he's making, somebody to follow.
Thank you, Suki.
It's been incredible exploring how you create such visually striking work. It's always a pleasure to get a behind-the-scenes look into how projects like this come to life, and I really appreciate the fresh perspective you bring on where technology and creativity meet, and honestly, just how refreshing your honesty is. So I'm really glad for that. Huge gratitude to Echo Bend Studios, especially Noah Wagner, Ryan Turner, and their crews for helping produce, edit, and share this video with the world. It's a real honor to work with you both, and this podcast would not nearly be as professional or regularly scheduled without your dedication to the project. To all of you listeners, as always, we hope this conversation inspires you to get a little experimental, explore your own creative edges as these paradigms of media continue to shift. Because the future of storytelling is wide open, and voices like yours could be the ones leading the next wave of change. If you or someone you know is a creative technologist who should be featured on our show, please reach out. We would love to hear what you're working on. And until the next time, I just hope that you stay curious and a little wild in all of your endeavors, in all of your explorations of the future. Dear Future, be exciting. See you soon.
Dear Future.